morning. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. I hope, again, that you're all healthy. And we're dedicating this class to the safety and health of all those that require it. Everyone requires it. But those that are not feeling well should feel better. And there should be an end to this terrible coronavirus epidemic, maybe we should call it. It should be the end of all negativity and only good and positive in this world. As I mentioned yesterday, we began a new book of Vayikra. And the first parsha is what we're learning this week, and I want to share a little bit from this parsha. I'm going to use today a sefer called the Kutei Siches. This is the talks from the Rebbe on the parsha, and we're doing volume 3. The Chumash tells us, specifically this one, about korbanos, about sacrifices, offerings that were brought in the Beis HaMikdash, things that were brought in the temple every single day. We know that, unfortunately, today we don't have a temple, we don't have a Beis HaMikdash. But during the times of the Holy Temple, there were many offerings and sacrifices and services that were done there, including lighting the menorah, washing of the hands, singing, many different beautiful things that took place in the Beis HaMikdash. But the main one was, of course, offerings, where animal sacrifices were brought on the altar. It was an expression to Hashem, a connection, an atonement, and so on. We have a principle that every single thing in Torah is applicable and relevant. So whatever you learn in Torah, whatever you read, has some message, some relevance to man, woman, or child in all eras and in all locations. It's not a history book. It's not something from the past. It has relevance, it has guidance, it has inspiration. It tells you what to do, what not to do in your personal life. And this is especially true when it comes to something as important as offerings, which was the main service in the Beis HaMikdash, korbanos. So today we're going to explore a little bit how this would apply to ourselves. There's a concept, why did Hashem want altogether these offerings in the Beis HaMikdash? Why did he want sacrifices? So the purpose of the Beis HaMikdash was, make a dwelling place, make a home for me, and I'll dwell in them. Them meaning plural. There's more than one place. Now, even though there was more than one Beis HaMikdash, there were two, and hopefully very soon we'll have a third one, the coming of Mashiach, that should be today. But more than that, there was only one at the same time. There was never more than one at the same time. What we have is every individual, every home, every heart could and should be a home for Hashem. Which means that in your own personal life, you have the possibility and the opportunity to make it a home for Hashem. You could bring Hashem, you can make this a place where God feels comfortable, that it's holy within yourself. And just like in the temple, it was an atonement for sins, meaning that when the offerings were brought, it fixed past negativity. It took care, it wiped away, it atoned for mistakes that people have made. Similarly, in our own lives, by making our hearts and our homes a temple for Hashem, and we'll explain that in a moment, we also have that opportunity to atone for things that we may have done wrong. Let's look a little bit about the mechanism of these offerings and how they worked. The first offering that was brought in the Beis HaMikdash was called the Korban Tamid. Tamid means it's constant. Every single morning they brought an offering. And every single evening they brought an offering. Now the nice thing about this offering, or the interesting thing was, it wasn't anything major, fancy, it wasn't anything huge. It was a sheep, one sheep. It had a little bit of flour, a little oil, a little salt, a little wine mixed together, and that was the offering of the Tamid. And this offering wasn't every Jew brought an offering in the temple. It was one collective offering for the entire nation, which means every person brought a little bit of money at some point in the year, and they used that money to buy all the supplies, the animals, and so on and so forth. And that's what they used for an offering. And if you do the math, it comes out that every person's participation in the offering was very, very minimal. Okay, how much was your part financially in this offering in the temple? If it was just one sheep on behalf of all the Jewish people and a drop of flour and a few ingredients, which means that for Hashem, for God, what's important is not the amount. It's much more than the amount. It's how you're doing it. It's the fact that it's coming from your heart, that you're sincere, that you mean it. The Rebbe explains that when you do the mitzvah, in this case an offering, with enthusiasm and with happiness, you're happy when you do it, that's worth everything. It's worth much more than the quantity of the offering if the quality is good. And quality in this case means sincere. So if we talk about making an offering for Hashem in our own personal lives, and what that means, turning our hearts into a holy place, turning our homes into a holy place, to a temple for Hashem, the key is sincerity, and the key to sincerity is doing it with enthusiasm and with joy. It's extremely important. There's a beautiful story when you talk about sincerity. During the expulsion of the Jews from Spain and Portugal in the late 1400s, 1492, and even earlier a little bit, there were many Jews who obviously were given the choice. You could either convert or be killed. So some Jews tried to escape, others were able to, others weren't. Some, known as the Marranos, have outwardly converted to Catholicism, and inwardly they remained Jewish, and they always remain Jewish. You can never convert out, but inwardly they practice Judaism in their cellars and their homes in secret. And if they were ever caught, it was tremendous punishment. They were burnt at the stake, etc. Well, one such Jew managed to escape eventually, and he made it to Tzfas, Israel. And in Tzfas, he was, going to the shul there, a very, very sincere, we'll call him a simple-minded individual who came to shul, and he would go regularly to shul. And one week, the rabbi there was talking about the temple and the offerings in the temple, and he explained that they had this offering called lechem hapanim. It was the showbread. And the way it worked was they had 12 loaves of bread, and it was divided for the kohen and the priests that were there, the group that was coming in, and the group that was going out. Entire beautiful explanation and how important it was and how special it was, the bread that Hashem got. He mentioned that now, because the temple is destroyed, we don't have this showbread anymore, and Hashem doesn't have that offering. But very soon Mashiach will come, we'll have it again. This fellow, let's just call him David, okay? This fellow David was really bothered. He said, why shouldn't Hashem have his bread? Why shouldn't he have his challah that he had in the temple? I could take care of that for him. So he went home, and very sincerely he asked his wife, can you please bake 2 loaves of bread, challah, for God? In the temple, the rabbi said he used to have challah. Now he doesn't, because there's no temple. Can you do it? So she said, sure. And if it's for God, I'm going to use my best recipe. And I'm going to make it the greatest bread possible. They got the best flour, and they used the best water, and they whatever they could to make sure that this bread, and indeed, when they baked it, it was amazing. It was a very, very delicious loaf of bread, and she gives it to her husband. Here's 2 loaves for God. Now, where do you give bread to God? There's an address. What do you do? So he decided the best place would be to go to the synagogue and put it in the shul, in the Aron Kodesh, in the ark where the Torahs are kept. That's a holy place. That's where the Torahs are, the most sacred object that we have. We'll put the bread there. Now, it was a little uncomfortable. People may say something. People will know. It's his secret. It's between him and God. So he snuck into the shul Friday, late morning. The morning parishioners have already left. The afternoon and the evening, people were not there yet. He snuck in, he opened the ark, and he put his 2 challahs there. That night, he came to shul to daven for Shabbos, and when he was done, he opened the ark, and he sees that his chalos are not there. And he was elated. He was so happy. God accepted my sacrifice. I put the bread there, the challah, and it's gone. And he came home and he told his wife, "You'll never believe it. Your delicious challah that smelled so good and looked so good. God likes it. He took it. Amazing. This is unbelievable. We got to do this next week again." What he didn't know was that the gabbai, the sektin, the attendant to the shul, came in that afternoon to organize and get ready for Shabbos and to make sure that the Torahs were in the right place and that which Torahs they're going to use that Shabbos. And he opened the ark and he sees two challahs. So he took it. He was a very poor man. He was so happy. God provides. He took his two challahs home to his family. When he came home, he told his wife, "You'll never believe it. We have bread from God." I went to the Aron Kodesh, opened it up. Listen, God provides. They were so happy, and it was actually the best challah they ever tasted. Well, the next Friday came along, and our simple fellow David, he went, and again, his wife baked the challah, and with a lot of care and devotion, and she put it in there. And again, Friday night he checked, and it was gone. And this went on for several weeks. One Friday afternoon, as he's placing the challah in the, "Did you lose something?" He said, "I'm so sorry, I'm putting bread there. I put bread there it's God's bread." So you out of your mind? You think God eats bread? What are you talking about? God's not human. God has no body. It's part of the principles of faith. He started to lay in on him how terrible of a thing it is that he's doing. And you're doing this for weeks. You know who's taking the bread? God doesn't take your bread. God doesn't eat. The sektin, the gabbai, he probably came in. He took the bread. And sure enough, the door opens up and the gabbai walks in. And he sees this whole commotion. The rabbi is angry. This person is changing colors. He's devastated beyond. My bread that I'm giving to Hashem, that I'm so happy about, that we're baking with so much care, it turns out that it's nothing. He was really, really upset. And the gabbai was also hurt. I thought God is giving me this bread. Now I have no bread anymore. What am I going to do for my family? I'm so poor. And this Jew goes home. This David doesn't even know how to tell his wife the reality that this whole thing turns out to be a mistake. Well, that night there was a knock on the door of the rabbi's house. It says, a messenger from the Arizal, great Kabbalist, the Ari, lived in Sfas. And he said, the Arizal said to tell you, you should make your final arrangements, speak to your family, because tomorrow morning you are going to die. What? The Arizal said that? He ran to the Arizal, crying, screaming, what in the world? Why such a decree? What did I do wrong? And the Arizal tells him that since the destruction of the temple, God never had such enjoyment, such appreciation as he did these past few weeks when the simple person and his wife were baking bread sincerely, thinking that they're giving it to God, and the other person was receiving it and thanking God for providing the bread. And you, Rabbi, he said, took away that pleasure from Hashem. And that's indeed what happened. The next morning, unfortunately, he passed away. The story shows us, and that's what we're learning here, the importance and the value of sincerity. That when a person is sincere, obviously God doesn't eat bread, but he appreciates sincerity. And when we're sincere, that's our temple. That's our sacrifice. That's worth everything. Let's go back to the temple for a moment. The Korban Tamid, the offering that was brought every single morning and later in the evening, was, what was it? It was a sheep, wine, flour, oil, and salt. But it represented all four categories of existence. You have the world, and the world consists of, the things, the creations of the world have Daimim, Semeach, Chai, and Medaber. Daimim are inanimate objects, which was the salt that they brought, it's a mineral. Semeach are things that grow, which is the oil and the wine, and flour. And Chai was the sheep, and the person bringing it was the Medaber, was the one that speaks. So you have the entire makeup of creation is here, giving something to God. And the value was not expensive, especially considering that every Jew chipped in. What this teaches us is as follows. In order to please God, in order to bring an offering to Hashem, to give something, to have a sacrifice, you don't have to give everything you own. Generally speaking, Hashem is not looking for everything. You don't have to do it the entire day. You can do it in the morning and in the evening. But when you do it sincerely. Today, we don't have a temple. We don't have sacrifices. But we have prayer. And just like the sacrifices were brought first thing in the morning, right? They brought, by the way, those that are watching, please, you're welcome to ask questions, comment. You could argue. You just can't throw anything at me. You could, but it'll ruin your computer or your phone. But please subscribe, share, let us know how you're enjoying these classes. So when you start your day, just like the offering was done, you started your day with an offering. That was before anything else that went on in the temple. They brought the korban tamid. Start your day with a prayer. Begin with Meida'ani. When you acknowledge, when you connect, it's a few words. It's not a lot. It's not a long prayer. But when you start your day that way, the entire day is different. The korban tamid was a sandwich, right? It was an offering in the morning, then an offering in the evening. But the whole day is considered a constant offering. It's a korban tamid. It permeated the entire day. If you start with prayer, you start with a connection to Hashem, you start with positivity and holiness, and then you end your day, the evening is that way, somehow the middle gets infused with this positivity. The middle it's a continuum. And that offering, that sacrifice continues. It's such a tremendous lesson that we have from a korban and what it represents, that if we think about it a little bit, and it's not hard to do, it just takes decision and focus. It's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. Another very beautiful lesson that we have from these offerings is that the offerings were an atonement for a sin. Okay, many of these offerings that we brought, they brought forgiveness from God on behalf of the Jewish people. Right? If a Jewish person if a Jewish nation or an individual made a mistake, or sometimes did something even on purpose, there were various different offerings that atoned for that. They fixed it. In our lives as well, we make mistakes. We do things that we regret. There's things that we say to others, that we do to others, whether it's between us and our fellow, or it's between us and Hashem. We do things, or we say things that we shouldn't have. The Meida'ani, the Rebbe says, when a person gets up in the morning and he says Meida'ani, which is a commitment, it's an acknowledgement that God gave back my neshama. I'm thanking him, I'm acknowledging him, I appreciate it, but I recognize that everything comes from him. And when I connect in that way, that has the koyach, the power to atone for things that I have missed. As long as it's sincere. If when I say those words, it's not just a few words, you say it and you're out. It's a few words, but when you mean it and you connect, that helps you and that fixes your past. And the lesson that we have from this is that when a person does something wrong, whether it's on purpose or by mistake, the natural feeling that follows is obviously regret, but despair. I feel bad. What am I? I'm a failure. I made a mistake. I messed up again. And you feel very bad. And when you feel bad or you feel like you're a failure, then it continues in a downward spiral. And things only go worse from there. But if you remember that we have this concept called an offering, and today it's a sincere prayer, the Meida'ani, the morning acknowledgement, the first words that you say when you wake up, you say Meida'ani. You can see it in any prayer book, in any siddur. You acknowledge to Hashem that he is the king of the universe and he gives us life, and you're thankful to him. That turns your heart into a temple for Hashem. That helps you bring holiness throughout your day based on your decisions, your choices, the mitzvahs that you do into your home. And that makes your home into a temple. And when Hashem dwells in every single person, that's the purpose of creation. That's the goal. Make a mikdash, make a temple, and I'll dwell in them, in every single one of you. So now more than ever, that we're all spending time at home due to this corona situation. And unfortunately, we want to leave, but we can't. Let's use the opportunity. Let's use the opportunity to make our homes holy, to make our lives holy, and to create a temple for Hashem. Thanks for watching, and again, please share, subscribe, and like if you like it. Thank you very much. We'll see you a little later in a couple hours towards evening, and I look forward.